The toll of rising interest rates, energy prices, grocery bills, pretty much everything is having a clear and pronounced impact. Today, the latest consumer confidence figures from the ANZ and Roy Morgan Australia suggest April was the weakest month since late 1990. Literally, that's the point when Treasurer Paul Keating uttered those immortal words, "This is the recession Australia had to have." Well, we're not in recession now. Unemployment is 3.7%, not 8% as it was then. But we're clearly not happy. So let's bring in here ANZ's Chief Economist, Richard Yetsenga. Richard, many thanks for your time. We're not in recession. It's not 1990. We're not in the deepest recession we've seen since many years earlier. What's happening?
Well, consumers are telling us they're feeling like it's recession, and far be it from me to tell consumers how they should be feeling. I think the reality is on an individual level, they're not feeling fantastic, but certainly their balance sheets on average are in very good shape. And while their income in effective terms have come down because of they're paying more tax and because of cost of living issues, actually relative to even 18 months ago, consumers are still in actually pretty good shape. So there's kind of a change issue versus a levels issue. Levels are pretty good. Changes, people are feeling quite down about.
Okay, so the retail figures that came out last week showed something that was very telling, and that is though people are sort of affording the higher prices, so therefore retail sales aren't dropping like a stone. They're not dropping, say, for example, like your assessment of current financial conditions. You can see there that the sentiment has just collapsed like off a cliff. But what's happening is is dropping off a cliff is the volume of stuff that people are buying. That's the difference, isn't it?
That's ultimately what drives activity in the economy. The pricing that we've seen has camouflaged really this drop-off in activity. And in fact, if you think about consumers, we've had quite an unusual combination of events. A spike in inflation of the sort we've almost never seen, and a spike in interest rates of the sort we haven't seen really for many, many decades. Those two together, it's no wonder, even despite their, on average, their pretty good structural position, consumers are saying, wow, this is a lot to deal with.
Okay, so then tomorrow we see Philip Lowe, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, up before Senate estimates, giving his assessment of the economy, no doubt. Are these the types of numbers that he actually wants to see? That this is the real reason why the interest rates have risen as high as they have?
Well, partly consumer sentiment is reflecting the interest rate hikes as much as reflecting the cost of living, I think. So there's a bit of a mixed message in that for the RBA, but certainly for the RBA, tomorrow's monthly inflation number is likely to show inflation still running above 6% in the monthly.
Will that be a surprise at all, do you think? Because, everybody says, hang on, this should be heading down. You've got the cash rate still sitting out there at 3.85%. So you've got this sort of big difference between the actual inflation rate and where the cash rate is right now.
And this will be another month which propagates that trend and which again says, well, inflation kind of is coming down if you squint in some variables, but boy, it's very sticky, and the economy in aggregate still seems to be handling this hike in interest.
And we've seen from overseas what the central banks have done in the United States, what they've done in New Zealand, what they're doing in Europe right now, and that is trying to get their cash rate above their inflation rate. But we still have a way to go, don't we?
And while the RBA is under a lot of pressure domestically, the reality is they've under-delivered what central banks elsewhere have delivered. They're about 100 basis points shy of that. So we shouldn't, I'm not suggesting they're about to make up that gap very quickly, but certainly everything that I look at says we should be thinking about the RBA still hiking rather than turning around imminently and starting to cut rates.
Okay, so you're a student of the economy. You see what's taking place out there. You can see these numbers where households are very concerned about their spending, their confidence is very low. And then I see the weekend auction rates and the clearance rates are out there almost like they're boom time conditions, nearly 70% or more. So whatever comes onto the market pretty much gets sold. And housing prices are going up. Can you explain that for me?
Well, there's not a lot on the market. And of course, housing prices have started to go up. And I think people who are close to that, the cusp of buying versus renting, understand what the rental market is like. It's not just a pricing question, but an availability question. It just seems like rentals are very difficult to find, even if you can get something that's within your budget, and so that's tipped people back towards buying. And of course, we've had a bit of a pickup, a big pickup in immigration, which adds
doesn't it seem unusual to you that you've got consumer confidence, falling off a cliff like you've shown today, and yet people are willing to go and borrow large amounts of money and spend to get into the housing market, not quite knowing what's coming?
Well, I think this is why I discount consumer confidence a little bit. I've got no doubt people are feeling that way, but actually when I look at their balance sheets and look at their income and look at the hours they're working, the availability they have to work more hours, the fact employment growth has been quite strong, the fact we have far more advertised job vacancies than people who are available to take those vacancies, the fact that business conditions are still above average, the fact that firms are still looking to invest, consumers can say they're downbeat. That's not reflecting what I'm seeing in terms
Okay, so I've got less than 30 seconds. Just tell me, how many more interest rate rises have you got coming from the RBA?
At least one.
At least one. And when do you think that interest rates start coming down?
Oh, certainly well beyond 12 months.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it. Richard Yetsenga, always great to have you in the program. Many thanks for coming in today.